I wanted to speak a little bit about difficulty, a little bit. Um, if I'm finding that really that is the prime time to really extend and expand your capabilities and what's possible for you, because a lot of the time during difficulty, that's when you will find the mind coming up, and your strong sense of identity to your personal self will be really, really amplified. And you're going to get all sorts of feelings coming in that, pains and just discomfort, anxiety, pride, arrogance, any kind of trick of the mind to come in. It likes to come in during these times. See if it can, if you'll answer that door. It'll come knocking, and sometimes it knocks really loud. You really have to use these moments, because they're really, actually, in a weird way, there to help you. They're there to show you what you're not. And what you're not is, you're not your story about who you think you are. You're not anything that you acquired after your birth. You are not originally that. That is not original to you. You got it after the fact. And I strongly recommend that you use these times to overcome anything that limits you, anything that has a story attached to it and is looking for you to buy into, cash into it, and take it on with you, that burden, that weight. It's the only way it can have power of you, is if you become a person and become personal, if you become someone who can be identified with it. If you notice the fact that you have a place deep within you that can see and witness all things that come, and not be caught up in the storm of these things. It notices the storm, but it also notices when the storm goes. If you can be the sky within yourself and not identify to anything, much like when you go to sleep at night and you fall asleep into deep sleep, you become nothing. So you have that capacity, strangely, in you. If you've ever been put under for surgery or something, it's a very strange phenomenon. There's a bit of a fade, and then you're just there, and yet 2 hours have gone by. Somehow you've been opened up. Consciousness seems to be very much like a field in which, our bodies are an antenna for, almost like we picking up on this signal, and it can become aware of itself through these antennae, these kind of these transmissions of consciousness. We're picking them up with our senses, with our brains, in our body. And we have this capacity to know ourselves through knowing our bodies. Being a body, we can know ourselves. But, at a fundamental level, at a pure level, there just is a field of existence, and it's not personal or touched by any sort of story or personal difficulty. And also, sometimes I feel like you have something of a play, a dance of consciousness. They call it Maya, and it's kind of the field of illusion in which consciousness likes to play and take shape and form. But there's a field. I wouldn't even call it a field. There's something that witnesses that field, and it's beyond concept. It's the Tao, as they call it. If you ever look into Taoism, also any kind of non-dualistic kind of viewpoints, it points to this unknowable quality, and yet you can experience it firsthand. And it's not something that can be analyzed with the mind. Lao Tzu said, to analyze or comprehend the Tao, or you could call that God, life, consciousness, universe, energy, to comprehend that, try to analyze that with your mind. It's like pinning a butterfly. You capture the husk, but the flying itself is lost. So in the same way, these things that I'm speaking of sound, if you take them as intellectual concepts, they will not work. They will not get the point across. These are words are signposts, and you have to take those where they lead and follow that through, and actually experience for yourself these things that are pointing you in a certain direction. And I feel like sometimes as this life, this crazy life unfolds, and you get difficulties, sometimes, I feel like, you be led into making certain decisions that you may, your mind might judge as, that was a bad decision, that was a wrong decision. But if you can see it from some sort of a higher perspective, I mean, how many times have you made a bad decision but learned something from it, and if you have the courage to surrender into that pure state and live your life from it, if it leads you into making certain decisions, there's this force that can come that is like full of doubting, and it's a very heavy and fear-based force. And I think you'll find that if you don't entertain that, these decisions that you make, good or bad, they end up leading to somewhere beautiful in the end. I mean, it really does take a little bit of courage. You could call it faith. But once you've had enough experiences to really validate in you that this is the way that I think, and this is all my opinion, based on experience, this is the way that I think humans were intended to live, you could say. Because from a pure place, there is no pride or arrogance, or there really is no selfishness, because you're beyond a self in the terms of a person, of a personal self. You're beyond. And I don't even want to say there's something that comes to say, look, I'm just getting started and all this, but really when you find that you've always been there and you always are there, that you also discover that there isn't even a journey. You can't attain something that you already are. You just are it. You can't look at it either. A knife can't cut itself. It can only cut other things. And a lot of this knowledge, is just merely a categorization of experience. So really, where the name of the game is experience, and living firsthand these concepts and these pointings, because I can describe to you what a sunset looks like forever with the most intricate detail, but you will never know what a sunset is like until you experience it. The taste of almonds will elude you until you taste one for yourself. And so I just would say use hard times for your benefit. And when I say you, I mean truly look and ask and inquire yourself. Inquire to yourself, who are you at? Ramana Maharshi is an Indian sage, lived in the 50s. Used to practice this method of inquiring and just, persistently asking the question, who am I? And looking, because when you ask that, you're immediately put into a place of looking versus identifying. And you can look and see what comes up, and you may get some things like, well, what do you mean? I'm me. Of course, I'm me. My name's John, But if you start to really keep on going, if you go, well, who is John? Eventually you hit a point where you hit silence, and yet you're still there. You still exist. You're aware. And from this point, all things happen. All things are perceived. All things are coming and going from this space. And if you ask this space, who am I? and just be persistent, you know. Give yourself to this grace, this life itselfness that you are, and use these difficulties to push you further into remembering who you really and truly are.